Hello, fifth grade. Today in math, we are doing lesson 8.15, and it is over naming triangles. So we are going to use the information that we have learned the last couple of days about angles to look at triangles and give them the proper name. So first, we can name triangles by looking at their angles. So that's what we are going to talk about first. And these triangle names, by looking at their angles, should look familiar to you because they are the types of angles we have been talking about for the last couple of days. So the first type of triangle that we have is a right triangle. And in order for a triangle to be classified as a right triangle, it must have one right angle. Now, in order for you to remember correctly, a right angle, remember, is 90 degrees. It's a perfect corner, just like that. So if it's a right triangle, it has to have one right angle in there somewhere. If it's not a right triangle, it might be an obtuse triangle. An obtuse triangle has one obtuse angle. Remember, we have talked about obtuse angles as well. Obtuse means greater than 90 degrees. So as a little example here, this would be an example of an obtuse angle. So if a triangle has one obtuse angle, it is an obtuse triangle. And if it is neither a right triangle nor an obtuse triangle, that means that it is an acute triangle. And an acute triangle has three acute angles. Three acute angles in order to be an acute triangle. And remember, acute means small, a cute little angle. So something like this would be an example. All right, now we're going to use those three triangle names to classify some triangles by their angles. So I'm going to flip my page here. And we are going to look at these triangles right here on the top half. And we're going to classify them by their angles. So let's start with this one. I always check first for a right angle because those are easy to see. Usually they have that square in the corner. So looking at this triangle here, there are no right angles. None of those are a perfect corner. So I know it can't be a right triangle. Next, I check for obtuse angles. And I like to look at each corner. So I kind of cover up here and I just look at this corner. Is this an obtuse angle? No. Look at a different corner. Is this an obtuse angle? No. And look at the third corner. Is this an obtuse angle? No. So there are no obtuse angles, no right angles. So this one has to be an acute triangle. All three sides are acute. Or all three angles, sorry. All right, number 11. First, I'm going to check for that right angle because that's the easy one to find, and I don't see a right angle anywhere there. So now I'm going to check and see what kind of angles I have. This side is acute. This side is also acute. This side is obtuse, though. That is a big angle. So remember, if it has one obtuse angle, it is an obtuse triangle. So that one is obtuse. All right, let's look at number 12. First, I check for that right angle. I don't see any right angles happening there. So let's look and see what we have. On this side, I have an acute angle. Up there, I have an acute angle. And down there, I have an acute angle. So if I have three acute angles, that is an acute triangle. Okay, number 13. I don't see any right angles happening, so I know it can't be a right triangle. Now I'm going to check and see what type of angles I have, covering up the other ones. This little angle has to be acute. That's very small. This angle is also acute. And when I check my third one, ooh, that is obtuse. That is big. So this has to be an obtuse triangle. Alrighty, number 14. First, I'm checking for right angles. This one looks almost like a right angle, but it's not perfect or it would have that square, so it can't be a right triangle. Now I'm going to check and see for my angles that I have left. This one is acute. This one is acute. This one is obtuse. It's a little bit bigger, so it is obtuse. This would be an obtuse triangle. And number 15 should jump out at you immediately. It has that square in the corner, which means that is a right angle, which means this has to be a right triangle. So we've got to look at all three angles. If it has one right angle, it's a right triangle. If it has one obtuse angle, it's an obtuse triangle. And if all of them are just acute, then it's an acute triangle. All right, now I'm going to flip back. We can also name triangles by their sides. So instead of just looking at their angles, we can look at the sides of the triangle to also give it a name that way. Now, these words might not look familiar to you because they are new to us, and that's okay. The first name would be equilateral, and equilateral triangles have 3 equal sides. Equilateral kind of sounds like equal, so equilateral triangles, all of the sides are equal. They're all the same length. If it is not an equilateral triangle, it could be an isosceles triangle. Isosceles triangles have 2 equal sides. So 2 of the sides are the same, but the third one is either longer or shorter if it's an isosceles. And if our triangle is not equilateral and it's not isosceles, then it would be scalene. And scalene triangles have 0 equal sides. 0 equal sides. Okay? The hardest part about naming triangles by their sides is saying the names correctly because these words are kind of tricky to say. So we have equilateral, isosceles, and scalene. All right, let's practice naming some triangles by their sides again. So I'm flipping back here. We're going to do the bottom half of our page now. Oops, let me get it there so you can see it nicely. There we go. All right, one thing I want to point out, you will notice some of these triangles have these little tick marks on the sides. If this side and this side both have a tick mark, that means that those two are the same length. They do that so that we don't have to get out a ruler to actually measure and see if they're the same. They make those little marks for us. So let's start down here on number 25. I noticed that all 3 sides have that tick mark. So that tells me this side is the same as this side and is the same as this side. They're all 3 the same. So if all 3 sides are the same, that means it is called an equilateral. Equilateral means all 3 sides are the same. Okay, now I'm going to jump over here to 23. So I noticed that 2 sides have the mark, but the third one does not. Do you remember what it's called when 2 sides are the same, but the third one is different? It is an isosceles. And I'm going to have to flip back and forth because I can never remember how to spell isosceles. It's kind of a weird word. There we go. So that is an isosceles triangle because 2 of the sides match, but the third one is not the same length. Let's go to number 22 up here. Kind of hard to see, but I do see a tick mark here and here, but there's not one on the other side. So 2 sides are the same, the third one is different. That means it would be an isosceles triangle again. All right, next I'm going to go to 21. On 21, I notice there are no sides that are marked. So that must mean that they're all different or they would have marked them for us. So if they are all different lengths, none of the sides are the same, that is called scalene. That one is scalene. All right, we have 2 more. Let's go ahead and do number 24 next. Noticing those marks. I see 2 sides are the same. The third side is not. So remember, 2 sides the same. That is isosceles. And finally, number 20. I don't see any tick marks, so that must mean that all of the sides are a little bit different length. And if all of the sides are different, remember that is scalene. All right, I'm gonna flip back to that notes page. You might need to pause your video here so that you can use the notes to do your assignment. On your assignment, you will be naming triangles by their angles and by their sides. So make sure that you look closely at the notes. Go ahead and start on your assignment. Bye.